Okay, so there were a few phrases that my wife would say that would just get under my skin, and it was hard for me to respond because they're not really questions to be answered. So, what she would say when we're in an argument, or let's say I did something dumb, which, hey, right, it can happen. But when I would make a mistake or make a bad decision, she would say, "What were you thinking?" Right? And it was a phrase that really bothered me because I knew she wasn't really asking what was I thinking. She was really just expressing her disappointment in what I did. And so the problem that I had with that phrase when she would say it when I would make a bad decision, let's say I got a speeding ticket, which happened not too long ago, but it didn't happen this time. I mean, she would say this often at the beginning of our marriage. It's just something that I'm remembering now that I believe would be helpful to share with you. She would say that, like, what were you thinking? And it would bother me, and it would cause me to do two things in the moment, it would cause me to do two things in the moment. It would cause me to either shut down or get or reply in kind, right? So if she was coming at me pretty aggressive, then I would almost respond in kind. And the problem with that, or the problem I noticed when we would have those type of intense fellowship moments or just heated conversations, is I would respond in kind enough to hurt her spirit, right? I would respond like, no, I'm gonna win. If you're coming at me aggressive with this line of questioning, then I'm gonna return fire with fire, right? I'm gonna be just as aggressive as responding, and I would say, well, it's what I did, and well, you just don't understand. Well, I mean, you didn't understand, or you weren't there, or this is what happened. Like, what's your problem, or why are you asking me that? And I would say combatively, like, you're not even asking me. You're just telling me that to put me down, and that's not fair, and you're messed up, and so we would just kind of argue back and forth in that way when ultimately she's just trying to express her disappointment in my decision, and she wants me to get to a point of understanding her disappointment so then I can then respond with remorse and be apologetic. But it didn't bring out those feelings in me. And so when she would ask that, that's what it would do to me. But at the same time, early on in our marriage, I was also really understanding emotions because I do believe most men, right? I'm a man who came emotionally unassembled, and my wife is doing a great job of helping me understand those emotions and kind of rewire me, if you will, to understand what I'm going through and understanding the experiences that I'm having. And I appreciate her so much for that. But when I go, and then sometimes I would then shut down, right? It would come to a point where then she would be probing hard for an answer or just for understanding and for a connection and remorse from me, to be apologetic, that it would just cause me to shut down because I didn't quite understand how she was coming at me, and so I wanted to avoid the conflict of being just as aggressive, and so I would shut down and say, you know what, you're right, you win. And that would be the phrase that I would say, and she did not like that, right? So then I would say, look, you win, you're right, I'm sorry. And so it was not an authentic I'm sorry, nor was it right for me to say, hey, you win. But that was part of the issue when she would say that phrase, and it would bother the heck out of me. And I think it also gets at one of the core issues I have, or one of the core desires that I have as a man, is to be respected. And it just felt almost like just like mean, right? Like she's attacking me as a spirit. Like I make bad decisions. Like, what were you thinking when you did that? And not in every case was it ultimately this detrimental decision, but it was just a level of disappointment that let her down. And when she would say it that way, I felt attacked, like I'm not good at making decisions. And so that decision may have been bad, but she implied it in a way that I just don't make good decisions. And so she would then potentially bring up maybe other bad decisions. And so suddenly all these decisions that I've ever made, she would give the impression, or I would receive it that way, right? That's not necessarily what she's expressing, but I would receive it in a way that would tell me as a man that I make bad decisions for the family, so therefore I'm not thinking or I can't think. And that's how I would perceive it. So I think that's one of those phrases, like, wives, if you're watching this, if you're a wife and you're watching this, if you're a girlfriend and you're watching this, and your husband makes a bad decision, do your best to avoid that phrase and rephrase it in a way to express what you really mean, because he may be receiving it similar to the way I received it, which is a way of contempt and just disdain. And yeah, yes, you may be disappointed in what he's doing, but ultimately you're not disappointed in the person, you're disappointed in the decision. And so it's reinforcing that you do believe in the person. You know, like my wife now goes about it way differently, and she reinforces her desire that, hey, you're good, you know, I love you, you know, I appreciate what you're doing, but that just, you know, it hurt us in this way. What you did then hurt us in this way. And then so when she phrases that way, it just helps me understand where she's coming and how she's coming at me. And so I didn't respond in kind, but in this sense, I can respond in kind because she's coming at me gently. But regardless, men, I think it's important that we do have self-control, because God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of sound mind and love, and in that is power. And so if we come at our wives, regardless of how she approaches us, minus the hyper aggression, right? If she's being very aggressive or you know, to some degree a little violent, or verbally, you know, super hardcore abusive, we want to get to the point to where we just get to a more calm state and say, hey, look, I know it bothered you a lot. Give me time to process what you said, and I want to come back to you in 5 minutes. And if you say 5 minutes, come back in 5 minutes, right? Don't take an extra 30, right? Don't come back the next day, or don't continue to defer and symbolically mention 5 minutes where truly you don't really want to talk about it ever. I think it is important that we do address those conflicts, and that's one thing my wife and I are good at. We do want to address conflict. Like, we want to get at we want to get at the root of what brought about that conflict. And so I think that's a unique feature of both of us, but that's also what drives us to then respond in kind in those heated debates or arguments, or, you know, moments of disappointment where I made a bad decision or I do something goofy. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, if you had those experiences, or, you know, guys, if you're watching this and your wife has said that phrase, I think it's important to maybe share with her in a good time to stop using that phrase, and share with her how it makes you feel. Not she is wrong for doing it, but hey, when you say this, it makes me feel this way, and I know that's not what you mean. I know you love me, and I know you do think I make good decisions, but when you say this, it makes me feel this way about myself, right? However you feel is the best way for you to express that to your wife. I do believe that is something that should be expressed, because if not, she'll never know, and she'll continue using that phrase. And uncommunicated expectations just don't provide a great base for communication, because then you come from a little bit of resentment because you're never expressing to your wife how you don't like certain things or how certain things make you feel, and you're hoping that she gets it one day, when if you don't share it with her, then she'll never get it because you're never telling her. So and I think that's also another way of, you know, they call it, you know, going a step back to take 2 steps forward, right? So, you know, by expressing some of these things, it may cause some dust to rise up, but I do believe you'll be able to brush that away and get at a better foundation to where things stick better, right? Because it's like putting tape on something dusty. The tape's just gonna rip right off. But if you know, wipe away the surface to get at the true, you know, original level of surface, things will stick better. And so I do think it also helps with intimacy when you do get at some of those deeper emotions. And I think if you're able to navigate that conversation maturely, not getting too overly emotional, right? But being able to express your emotions in a mature way, I think that level of intimacy is just amazing. And hey, it may lead to other intimacy moments, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you because it's something that came to my mind the other day, and I thought, hey, you know, if it came to my mind, I figure I'd share it with you on this channel. It may help you. And if it did, let me know. Give me a little like or a thumbs up, or, you know, whatever you do on YouTube. Maybe subscribe to this channel so I can continue to put out content like this. Hope it helps you. So thanks for watching. And again, my name's Matt, and been married 16 years to an amazing wife, and have 3 amazing kids. I love marriage ministry. I love all things that facilitate marriage, because I believe if you change a marriage, you can change a generation. And so I'm starting with my marriage so I can change the future generations of my kids. So thanks so much. Y'all have a blessed one.